Growing up as Victoria Hamilton's daughter wasn't easy. Every breath I took, every step I made, was carefully monitored and judged. My father, the CEO of Hamilton Industries, had my entire life planned out before I could even walk. "Charlotte, darling," he'd say, adjusting his perfectly pressed Armani suit. "A Hamilton never settles for second best." Our mansion in Beverly Hills stood as a testament to that philosophy. 28 rooms of carefully curated luxury, each one screaming wealth and power. But to me, it felt more like a golden cage than a home. By the time I turned 25, I had followed my father's blueprint perfectly. Harvard Business School graduate, junior executive at Hamilton Industries, and engaged to Bradley Winchester ILI. Heir to Winchester Technologies and my father's handpicked choice for my husband. There was just one small problem. I was desperately, hopelessly in love with someone else. I met James Mitchell on a rainy Tuesday morning when my Ferrari broke down on the way to work. He was the mechanic who came to my rescue, arriving in a beaten-up tow truck with a smile that made my heart skip a beat. "Looks like your timing belt's shot," he said, wiping his hands on his worn jeans. "I can fix it, but it'll take a few hours." Something about his honest brown eyes and the way he explained everything without talking down to me made me agree to wait at his small garage instead of calling an Uber. That decision changed my life forever. Over cups of terrible vending machine coffee, I discovered James wasn't just any mechanic. He'd worked his way through engineering school, graduating top of his class. He could have taken a cushy corporate job, but he loved working with his hands, solving problems, making things better. "Life's too short to spend it doing something just because it looks good on paper," he told me, his eyes twinkling. Those words hit me like a thunderbolt. For the first time, someone had put into words exactly what I'd been feeling all my life. One coffee led to another, then dinner, then stolen moments whenever I could escape my suffocating world. James never asked about my family's wealth, never tried to impress me with fancy restaurants or expensive gifts. Instead, he showed me the joy of simple things: midnight drives along the coast, picnics in hidden parks, and laughter. So much laughter. For 6 months, I lived a double life. Society princess by day, myself by night. But I knew it couldn't last forever. The breaking point came during a charity gala at our mansion. Bradley was droning on about merger strategies to anyone who would listen, while my mother paraded me around like a prized thoroughbred. "Charlotte will be taking over the East Coast operations after the wedding," she'd announced to yet another group of socialites. The Winchesters and Hamiltons. Imagine the possibilities. I felt like I was suffocating. Excusing myself, I fled to the garden, my trembling fingers already dialing James's number. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered into the phone, tears streaming down my face. "I can't marry Bradley. I can't be who they want me to be." James was silent for a moment before speaking. "Then don't be. Be who you are, Charlotte. That's the person I fell in love with." That night changed everything. The next morning, I walked into my father's study, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. "Daddy, I need to tell you something." My voice shook slightly. "I can't marry Bradley. I'm in love with someone else." The explosion that followed was nuclear. My father's face turned purple as I explained about James, about wanting a different life than the one he planned. "A mechanic?" he roared, his fist slamming onto his mahogany desk. "My daughter, a Hamilton, in love with a grease monkey. He's an engineer, Daddy, and he's brilliant. If you just meet him." "Absolutely not." My father's voice could have shattered glass. "You will marry Bradley as planned, or you can forget about your trust fund, your position at the company, everything. Is that clear?" I stood up straighter, channeling strength I didn't know I had. "Crystal clear, Daddy. Goodbye." Walking out of that study was the hardest thing I'd ever done. My mother's hysterical tears, my father's threats, the whispers of the household staff. It all followed me as I packed a small bag and left the only home I'd ever known. James was waiting for me outside his modest apartment, worry etched on his face. When I told him what happened, he tried to talk me out of it. "Charlotte, that's your whole life you're giving up. Your family, your inheritance. I can't let you do that for me." I silenced him with a kiss. "I'm not giving up my life, James. I'm finally starting it." The next few months were a crash course in reality. I moved into James' one-bedroom apartment, got a job as an entry-level business consultant at a small firm, and learned how to live on a budget. It wasn't easy, but for the first time in my life, I felt free. My parents' attempts to bring me to my senses ranged from emotional manipulation to outright threats. They froze my accounts, canceled my credit cards, and even tried to get me fired from my new job. But with each obstacle, James and I grew stronger together. When we decided to get married, we planned a simple ceremony in a local park. No designer dress, no society photographers, just us and a few close friends. The morning of the wedding, I received a text from my mother. "Your father and I will be attending. One last chance to fix this mistake." My heart raced as I showed James the message. He squeezed my hand. "It's your call, love. Whatever you want." I wanted them there. Despite everything, they were still my parents. So when I walked down the makeshift aisle in my simple white dress from a department store, my eyes instantly found them standing at the back. My father looked like he'd swallowed something sour, while my mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Neither moved to join the ceremony. During the reception, a casual barbecue in the park, they made their final play. "Charlotte, darling," my mother's voice dripped with desperation. "It's not too late. Bradley would still take you back. Think about what you're throwing away." My father cut straight to the point. "This is your last chance, young lady. Stay with this person, and you'll never see a penny of your inheritance. Is that what you want? To live in poverty?" I looked at James, who was chatting and laughing with our friends, completely at ease in his rented suit. Then I looked at my parents, trapped in their world of wealth and expectations. "What I want," I said clearly, "is to be happy. James makes me happy. If you can't understand that, then maybe we don't need your money, or you, in our lives." My father's face turned that dangerous shade of purple again. "You're a dumb daughter of mine," he spat, turning on his heel. My mother hesitated for a moment, then hurried after him. As they stormed away, James appeared at my side, wrapping an arm around my waist. "You okay?" I leaned into him, watching my past walk away. Never better. That was 6 months ago. We settled into our life together, working hard, loving harder. James continued at his garage while taking night classes for his master's degree. I threw myself into my consulting work, building my own client base. We were happy, truly happy, even if we had to watch our spending and clip coupons. But there was something James hadn't told me, something that was about to turn my world upside down again. Everything changed on a seemingly ordinary Friday evening. I came home from work early, excited to surprise James with takeout from our favorite Thai place. But our apartment was empty, with a hastily scribbled note on the counter. "Working late at the garage. Love you." It wasn't unusual for James to work late, but something felt different. Lately, he'd been distracted, taking mysterious phone calls and working odd hours. A knot formed in my stomach as my mind wandered to dark places. Was history repeating itself? Was I about to lose everything again? Unable to sit still, I decided to bring dinner to him at the garage. But when I pulled up, the place was dark. James's beaten-up truck wasn't in its usual spot. My hands trembled as I called his number. Straight to voicemail. Just as panic started to set in, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Mitchell, please come to 1875 Highland Avenue immediately. It's about your husband." My heart stopped. Highland Avenue was in the industrial district, miles from James's garage. With shaking fingers, I typed the address into my GPS and drove through the darkening city, imagining worst-case scenarios. The GPS led me to a massive, modern building with sleek glass walls. Security gates opened automatically as I approached, and a uniformed guard directed me to an underground parking garage. "Mrs. Mitchell," he nodded respectfully. "Take the executive elevator to the top floor." Executive elevator? Top floor? What was going on? The elevator opened into a stunning office suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And there, standing at a glass desk with his back to me, was James, but not the James I knew. Gone were the worn jeans and oil-stained t-shirt. Instead, he wore an impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than our monthly rent. When he turned around, his familiar warm smile was tinged with nervousness. "Charlie," he said softly, using his special nickname for me, "I think it's time I told you everything." Before he could continue, the office door burst open. And there, like a scene from my worst nightmare, stood my father, mother, and Bradley Winchester Eli. "What is the meaning of this?" my father thundered, his face already turning that familiar shade of purple. Security said Charlotte was headed up here. "What are you doing in the CEO's office, you mechanic?" James straightened his tie and walked around the desk. "Actually, Mr. Hamilton, I am the CEO. James Mitchell, founder and chief executive officer of Mitchell Innovations." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother grabbed a chair for support. Bradley's mouth hung open unattractively, and my father, for the first time in my life, was speechless. But my mother stammered, "You're a mechanic." James smiled, taking my hand. "I own a chain of auto repair shops, yes. It was my first business, started with a loan from my college professor. But Mitchell Innovations is my main focus. We're a tech company specializing in revolutionary electric vehicle batteries. That's what those late nights at the garage were about. We were finalizing our new prototype." My head was spinning. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed to know," James said softly, turning to face me. "When we met, I just made the Forbes 30 under 30 list. Every woman I dated was only interested in my money, my status. But you fell in love with me when I was just a mechanic. You gave up everything for me. I had to be sure." Mitchell Innovations, my father muttered, his business mind finally catching up. "The company that just revolutionized electric vehicle battery technology. The one every major car manufacturer is fighting to partner with. That's you." James nodded. "Our market valuation hit $12 billion last week. Not quite Hamilton Industries territory, but we're getting there." I couldn't help but laugh at my father's expression. All those months of looking down on my poor husband, and James had been building an empire right under their noses. "And now," James continued, his voice taking on a sharper edge, "I'd like to discuss how you treated your daughter. The woman who, by the way, just became one of the largest shareholders in Mitchell Innovations when she married me." My father's face paled. Hamilton Industries had been trying to break into the electric vehicle market for years. Having a connection to Mitchell Innovations would have been a game changer. "Now see here," my father blustered, trying to regain control. "We were just looking out for Charlotte's best interests." "By disarming her?" James's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "By trying to get her fired? By making her cry herself to sleep for weeks?" "Daddy," I finally found my voice, "you always taught me that Hamiltons never settle for second best." Well, I didn't. I married the most brilliant, kind, and successful man I've ever known. And I did it without knowing about any of this. "Charlotte, sweetheart," my mother stepped forward, arms outstretched. "We were wrong. We see that now. Please come home." I looked around the magnificent office, then at James, my wonderful husband who had let me find my own way, support myself, grow stronger. "I am home, Mom, but if you want to be part of our lives, you'll have to accept us on our terms. No more manipulation. No more control." My father looked like he was choking on something particularly unpleasant. "And what about Hamilton Industries?" James smiled. "Well, sir, we've actually had several offers from your competitors for exclusive partnerships. But I thought, given the family connection, we might consider a different arrangement, if you're interested in discussing it, as equals." The next hour was surreal. My father and James talked business while my mother fussed over my terrible apartment and insisted we move into a proper home. Bradley had slunk away somewhere, probably to lick his wounds. Later that night, back in our small apartment, I finally asked James the question that had been burning in my mind. "Why keep working at the garage? Why live like this when you have billions?" James pulled me close. "The garage keeps me grounded, reminds me where I started. And this apartment, these months with you, they've been the happiest of my life. We made it ours together, without any silver spoons or trust funds." Tears welled in my eyes. "I love you, you sneaky billionaire." He laughed. "I love you too, you runaway Harris." Life changed after that night, but not in the ways people might expect. We did move, but into a modest house we chose together. I joined Mitchell Innovations as head of their charitable foundation, using our resources to help other young entrepreneurs. James still spends time at his original garage, teaching mechanical skills to underprivileged youth. My parents, well, they're trying. Mom still makes not-so-subtle hints about grandchildren needing trust funds, but Dad has developed a genuine respect for James. Their weekly business meetings often turned into lengthy discussions about everything from classic cars to philosophy. As for me, I finally understood what James meant about life being too short to live it on paper. Sometimes the best things come disguised as broken down Ferraris and coffee from vending machines. But the best part? Every now and then, when we drive past our old apartment or grab Thai food from our favorite takeout place, James still looks at me the same way he did when he was just a mechanic and I was just a rebel heiress. Because in the end, love doesn't care about bank accounts or business empires. It cares about who you are when everything else is stripped away. And we're simply Charlotte and James, a mechanic and a runaway heiress who found something better than billions. We found each other. I was 16 when my world shattered for the second time. The first had been when Mom died, leaving just Dad and me in our too quiet house. The second was when Diana moved in, bringing her designer clothes, expensive perfume, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "You'll love Diana," Dad had said, his face glowing with second-chance happiness. "She's exactly what this family needs." I tried to love her, I really did. For Dad's sake, I smiled through the wedding, helped her arrange her things in Mom's closet, and even started calling her Diana instead of Dad's new wife like I had at first. But Diana had other plans. It started small. My pictures disappeared from the living room walls, replaced by artsy black and white photos I'd never seen before. The kitchen cabinet that had always held Mom's recipe box was suddenly full of organic supplements and diet shakes. "We're making a fresh start," Diana would say whenever I asked about the changes. "Out with the old, in with the new." Then came the bigger changes. My curfew got earlier. My friends were suddenly not the right kind of influence. The college fund Mom and Dad had been building since I was born. Diana convinced Dad they needed that money for home improvements. But the garage, that was the final straw. I came home from school one day to find my room completely empty. My bed, my desk, my bookshelves, everything was gone. Diana stood in the doorway, examining her manicure as if this was just another ordinary afternoon. "Where's my stuff?" I asked, my heart pounding. "In the garage," she said casually. "I need this room for my home office. You understand, don't you? After all, I work from home now." I ran to the garage, nearly tripping over the boxes of my life that had been carelessly dumped there. My photos were scattered across the concrete floor. Mom's old quilt, the last thing she made for me before she got sick, was stuffed into a garbage bag. "Dad would never agree to this," I said when I confronted her. Diana's perfect smile turned cold. "Your father agrees with me about what's best for this family. If you have a problem with the garage, you're welcome to find somewhere else to live." "This is my house too," I shouted, feeling tears burn in my eyes. Mom wanted. "Your mother is dead," Diana cut me off, her voice sharp as glass. "And the sooner you accept that this is my house now, the better off we'll all be. The garage is good enough for you. Be grateful you're not on the street." I waited up all night for Dad to come home from his business trip, sure he would fix everything. He would put my room back together, tell Diana she had gone too far, remind her that this was my home too. But when he came home, he just looked tired. "Diana's right, sweetheart," he said, not meeting my highs. "Her work is important, and the garage, well, it's not so bad. We can fix it up for you." They never did fix it up. The garage became my world for the next 2 years, freezing in winter, sweltering in summer, always smelling of motor oil and broken dreams. I hung sheets to create walls, used milk crates as furniture, and studied by flashlight because the overhead light flickered too much to read by. Diana would parade her friends through sometimes, showing off her perfect home office that used to be my room. "Oh, and that's just the garage," she would say when they noticed the sheets visible through the door. "Where my stepdaughter prefers to stay. Teenagers, you know how they are." I graduated high school with honors, despite everything. Diana didn't come to the ceremony. Dad did, but left early because Diana had a headache and needed him at home. That night, I sat in my garage bedroom and made a promise to myself. This would not be my life forever. I would not let Diana win. I had applied to colleges in secret, using my guidance counselor's address for the acceptance letters. When I got a full scholarship to State University, I told no one. The day after graduation, I packed what little I had and left before dawn. The note I left was simple. Dad, I love you, but I can't live in a garage anymore. Don't try to find me. He didn't. The next 10 years were hard, but they were mine. I worked multiple jobs while putting myself through college, then graduate school. I ate ramen noodles, shared tiny apartments with too many roommates, and never bought anything I couldn't carry on my own. Every December, Dad would send a Christmas card to my school address, the only one he had, with a check and a short note saying he missed me. Diana never signed the cards. I never cashed the checks. I put myself through law school, specializing in real estate law. The irony wasn't lost on me. The girl who had been kicked out of her room was now helping others protect their homes. I worked hard, made connections, and slowly built a reputation as someone who fought for the underdog. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. A major development company was trying to force elderly residents out of their homes in a historic neighborhood. I took the case pro bono, working nights and weekends to build an unbeatable defense. We won. The residents got to keep their homes, plus a settlement that made headlines. My phone started ringing with calls from other clients, bigger firms, people who wanted to work with a lawyer who had taken down one of the biggest developers in the city. I opened my own practice, specializing in housing rights. Within 3 years, I had offices in 3 cities and a staff of 30. My face was in legal magazines, my name on 40 under 40 lists. I bought a beautiful brownstone in the historic district I had helped save, renovating it exactly the way I wanted. I never married, never had kids. My homes were my family now, not just my own house, but all the ones I helped protect. Every time I won a case, every time I helped someone keep their home, I thought about that garage and smiled. Then last week, my assistant came into my office with a strange look on her face. "There's a woman here to see you," she said. "She doesn't have an appointment, but she says she's your stepmother." I felt my heart stop for a moment. Then I took a deep breath and straightened my designer blazer, so different from the thrift store clothes I used to wear in the garage. Send her in. Diana looked older, of course. Her perfectly dyed hair had streaks of gray now, and her designer clothes seemed worn at the edges, but her eyes were the same, cold and calculating even when filled with tears. "Emily," she said, her voice breaking, "I need your help." I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the same way I had seen her gesture to the garage all those years ago. "Have a seat, Diana. Tell me what brings you to my office." She sat, twisting her hands in her lap. "Your father, he's gone." I felt a pang in my chest, not of grief, that would come later, but of regret for all the years we had lost. "When?" 3 months ago. Heart attack. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. He wasn't good with money. These last few years, there were gambling debts I didn't know about, loans I never saw. The bank, they're taking the house. I looked at her for a long moment, remembering every night I had spent shivering in that garage, every time she had smiled while hurting me, every chance she had had to be kind and chose not to be. "I have nowhere else to go," she whispered. "No one else to ask. Please, Emily, I need a place to stay." I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a set of keys. Keys I had kept all these years, though I never knew why. Keys to a very specific place. "I think I might have somewhere you can stay," I said softly. Diana stared at the keys in my hand, her eyes widening with recognition. "The garage? You can't be serious." "Why not?" I kept my voice neutral, professional. "You always said it was good enough for me." "That was different," she protested, her composure cracking. We were what, Diana? Family?" I leaned back in my chair, studying her. "Tell me something. In all the years I lived in that garage, did you ever once check if the heating worked in winter? Or if I had enough light to study by?" She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I did what I thought was best for everyone. "No," I corrected her. "You did what was best for you, and now I'm doing what's best for me." I stood up and walked to my office window, looking out at the city I had helped protect, one home at a time. The garage has been renovated. It has heating, plumbing, even a small kitchenette. That's more than I had. But it's still a garage," she whispered. "Yes." I turned back to face her. "It is. And you have 2 choices. You can take these keys and have a roof over your head, or you can leave my office and figure something else out. What's it going to be?" Her hands trembled as she reached for the keys. "I don't have anywhere else to go. I know exactly how that feels." The garage was attached to my brownstone. Not the one where I'd spent my teenage years, but a new one. I had bought it specifically because it had a garage, though I never parked a car there. Instead, I had turned it into a small apartment equipped with everything someone would need to live comfortably. But I had never used it. I had been waiting, though I hadn't known what for until Diana walked into my office. That evening, I watched from my kitchen window as Diana moved her few remaining possessions into the garage. Her designer suitcases looked out of place against the concrete floor, just as my teenage belongings once had. She tried to catch my eye through the window, probably hoping I'd invite her into the main house. I drew the curtains instead. Over the next few weeks, Diana learned what it meant to live in a garage. Yes, it had heating and basic amenities, but it was still separate from the main house, still a reminder of her reduced circumstances. She would try to engage me in conversation whenever I came home from work, standing in the driveway with a forced smile. "Emily, I was thinking maybe we could have dinner together. Talk about old times." "Old times?" I would reply. "Like when you threw my mother's quilt in a garbage bag? Or when you convinced Dad to spend my college fund on redecorating?" She stopped trying after a while. 1 month into her stay, I heard crying coming from the garage late one night. Against my better judgment, I went to check on her. I found her sitting on the small bed, surrounded by old photographs. Pictures of her and Dad in happier times, before the gambling and debts took over. "I never meant for any of this to happen," she said when she saw me. I wanted everything to be perfect, and I was in the way of perfect." She wiped her eyes. "I was jealous of you, of your mother's memory, of the way your father's eyes lit up when he talked about her. I thought if I could just erase all that, make everything new." "You can't erase people, Diana. You can't just put them in a garage and pretend they don't exist." "I know that now." She looked around the garage apartment. "I know exactly how it feels." For the first time, I saw something real in her eyes. Not manipulation, not calculation, just raw honesty. "The garage was never about space," I said quietly. "It was about power, about making me feel small." She nodded slowly. "And now you have the power." "No," I corrected her. "Now I have justice." Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Diana lived in the garage, working a receptionist job she'd found through a temp agency. Sometimes I would see her walking home late at night, her feet sore from standing all day, her designer clothes replaced by practical workwear. She never complained, never demanded more. Slowly, something in her began to change. One evening, I found a package outside my door. "I kept it," she admitted when I confronted her. "I don't know why. Maybe part of me knew how wrong I was even then." The quilt was carefully cleaned and repaired, each patch lovingly restored. It must have taken hours of work. "Thank you," I said. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. After 6 months, I noticed Diana spending her weekends helping a local homeless shelter. Not for show, not to impress anyone. She would come home exhausted, covered in kitchen grease, but somehow looking more at peace than I'd ever seen her. "They're just people who need help," she told me when I asked about it. Like I was. Like you were. 1 year to the day after she first showed up at my office, I invited Diana to dinner in my house. We sat at my kitchen table, an uncomfortable silence stretching between us. "Why did you help me?" she finally asked. "You could have turned me away. After everything I did, you had every right to." I took a sip of wine, considering my answer, because I needed to know. "Know what?" "If you could change, if living in the garage would break you like you tried to break me, or if it would teach you what it taught me." She looked at me curiously. "What did it teach you?" "That home isn't about the walls around you. It's about the strength inside you." Diana nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. "And what did it teach me?" "You tell me." She was quiet for a long moment. "It taught me that I was wrong. About everything. About you, about what makes a home, about what really matters." She met my eyes. "I'm sorry, Emily. Not because I need something from you, but because I truly understand now what I did wrong. It wasn't a perfect ending. Some wounds run too deep for perfect healing. But it was a beginning." The next day, I handed Diana a new set of keys, this time to a small apartment I owned in the city. Not a garage, but not a mansion either. Something in between, something she had earned. "Why?" she asked, tears in her eyes. Because you learned a lesson, I said simply. And because I refused to be the person you were. Diana moved out of the garage, but she didn't return to her old ways. She kept working at her job, kept volunteering at the shelter. Sometimes we would have coffee together and talk, not as stepmother and stepdaughter, but as two people who had both lived in the same garage and come out changed. I kept the garage apartment ready though, not out of bitterness or revenge, but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the spaces that break us can also rebuild us. That power isn't about making others feel small, and that even the deepest wounds can heal if we're willing to learn from them. Last week, I got a call about another family facing eviction. As I prepared to fight for their home, I looked out at the garage and smiled. Every home I save, every family I help, is a victory not just for them, but for that teenage girl who once slept on a garage floor and promised herself she would rise above it. Deanna volunteers at my legal clinic now, helping other families find emergency housing. Sometimes I catch her looking at the garage with a mix of shame and gratitude. "You know what the garage really is?" she asked me recently. "What?" "It's a mirror. It shows you who you really are." I nodded, thinking of all the tears and triumphs that space had witnessed. "And who are you now, Diana?" She smiled, a real smile, not the cold one she used to wear. "Someone better than I was. Thanks to you. Thanks to the garage." I look at the garage differently now too, not as a place of pain, but as a space of transformation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making someone suffer as you did. It's giving them the chance to understand why their actions were wrong, and watching them choose to be better. The garage keys still hang in my office, a reminder that home isn't just where we live, it's where we learn who we really are. The leather steering wheel felt smooth under my hands as I pulled the Mercedes S-Class up to my uncle's mansion. Through the rearview mirror, I watched him emerge, adjusting his Italian suit with the practiced air of someone who believed they were born for luxury. "Marcus," he barely glanced at me as he slid into the backseat. "We need to stop by the office before the airport, and try not to hit any potholes this time." "Yes, Uncle Richard." I kept my voice neutral, professional, just another driver doing his job. He was already on his phone, barking orders about the Thompson deal. I caught snippets about fleet requirements, transportation logistics, big numbers being thrown around. My lips twitched slightly. If only he knew. 5 years earlier, that same uncle had sat across from me at our family's weekly dinner, sneering at my business proposal. "A car service?" He'd laughed, cutting into his prime rib. "That's your big idea? To be a glorified taxi driver?" My father, always eager to agree with his more successful brother, shook his head. "Marcus, be reasonable. You have a business degree from Cornell. You should be doing something better." "The market research shows a gap in luxury transportation services," I tried to explain. "With the right technology platform and focus on premium clients." "Stop embarrassing yourself," Uncle Richard cut me off. "You want to work with cars? Fine, be our family driver. It's all you're good for anyway." The rest of the family tittered politely at his joke. My mother looked away, uncomfortable but unwilling to speak up. My cousin David, Uncle Richard's son, smirked from behind his wine glass. That night, I made a decision. I would be their driver, the best damn driver they'd ever had. And they would never know that every time they climbed into one of my luxury vehicles, they were putting money directly into my pocket, because Elite Crown Transportation wasn't just a car service. It was a revolution in luxury transport disguised as a humble family driver's side business. I started small and smart. One car, one driver, me, and one perfect client, my own family. They thought they were doing me a favor, letting me drive them around in a leased Mercedes. What they didn't know was that I was using their connections, learning their habits, understanding exactly what the luxury market wanted. Every time I drove Uncle Richard to a business meeting, I noted which clients commented on the car service. Every time I took my aunt to her charity functions, I observed how other wealthy women arranged their transportation. Every time my cousin needed a ride home from his drunken nights out, I saw the gap in the market for high-end, discreet late-night service. I built my company in silence, hidden behind shell corporations and holding companies. The family thought Elite Crown was just the service I used to lease their cars. They never bothered to look deeper, to see that I owned it completely. One car became 5, 5 became 20. I hired drivers carefully, training them in the art of invisible luxury service. Our app was sleek, discreet, and catered to the wealthiest clients in the city. No garish logos, no obvious branding, just perfect service and the finest vehicles. The real genius was in the corporate contracts. While my family saw me as just their driver, I was quietly signing deals with law firms, investment banks, and Fortune 500 companies. Elite Crown became the go-to service for anyone who wanted to project success without flashiness. Marcus, Uncle Richard's voice snapped me back to the present. Pay attention. We're picking up David at the office. I nodded, smoothly navigating through midtown traffic. My cousin was waiting outside their company headquarters, looking exactly like the entitled hare he was. Finally, he huffed, sliding into the back seat. Did you take the scenic route or something? I caught his eye in the rearview mirror. Traffic on Park Avenue, sir, will still make your flight on time. We better. This Thompson deal is worth millions. Not that you'd understand numbers that big. Oh, I understood them perfectly. Elite Crown's revenue had hit 8 figures last year, though that particular number wasn't public knowledge. Neither was the fact that my company now owned the largest luxury vehicle fleet in the city. I caught him looking at the car catalogs again. David Stage whispered to his father, probably dreaming about owning one of these instead of just driving them. Uncle Richard chuckled. Dreams are free, I suppose. Though he should be grateful we give him steady work. Most families wouldn't trust a failure with their transportation. I kept driving, letting their words wash over me like they had for years. In my ear, a small Bluetooth device buzzed softly, another major corporate contract being finalized. By the end of the day, Elite Crown would add another 50 vehicles to its fleet. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from Sarah, my COO. Thompson contract is ready. They need 100 vehicles next month. Should we tell them who they're really dealing with? I smiled slightly, thinking of the deal my uncle and cousin were rushing to close. The same deal that would require a massive transportation fleet for their clients' executives. The fleet they assumed they could easily arrange through their connections. Not yet, I texted back at the next red light. Let them figure it out in the meeting. We reached the airport with time to spare. I unloaded their luggage, earned another condescending pat on the shoulder from Uncle Richard. Don't scratch the car while we're gone, David called over his shoulder. It's worth more than you make in a year. Actually, I own this particular S-Class outright, along with 300 other luxury vehicles. But they didn't need to know that. Not yet. I watched them stride into the terminal, confident in their superiority, completely unaware that their driver was about to become the key to their biggest deal's success or failure. The real question was, how long should I let them squirm before revealing that the transportation company they desperately needed was owned by the family failure they'd mocked for years? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Sarah. Their competitors are calling. Want to hear their offer? I pulled away from the airport, already composing my response. Let Uncle Richard and David fly to their meeting, certain of their success. Let them believe they had everything under control. Soon enough, they'd learn what I'd known all along. Sometimes the real power belongs to the person behind the wheel. 3 days later, I sat in Elite Crown's headquarters, a sleek office space in a modern high-rise, not that my family knew about it, watching the Thompson meeting unfold through our corporate livestream. Being the preferred transportation provider for most major companies in the city had its perks, including access to their conference rooms' security feeds. As you can see, Uncle Richard was saying, we've thought of everything. The hotel arrangements, the event spaces, the security details. What about transportation? Mr. Thompson interrupted. Your proposal mentions a dedicated fleet of luxury vehicles for our executives. 100 cars, each with professional drivers available 24/7. That's a significant requirement. I watched Uncle Richard's confident smile falter slightly. Of course, we've been in talks with several premier transportation services. Which ones? Thompson pressed. Because I've done my homework, Richard. There are only 3 companies in the city with fleets that size, and 2 of them are already contracted exclusively to your competitors. David jumped in. We have a relationship with Elite Crown Transportation. They handle all our personal and business transport needs. Elite Crown? Thompson raised an eyebrow. Interesting choice. They're the best in the business, very exclusive with their contracts. You have confirmation they can handle our requirements. We have a special arrangement with them, Uncle Richard said smoothly. Our family has worked with them for years." I couldn't help but laugh. They had no idea they were talking about my company, that their special arrangement was just me playing driver while building an empire under their noses. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Should I send the email now?" "Do it," I replied. Moments later, I watched through the live stream as Thompson checked his phone. His eyebrows shot up. "Well, this is awkward," he said, looking up at Uncle Richard. "I just received an email from a Lake Crown's CEO. They're declining to take on any new corporate contracts this quarter. Apparently, they're already at fleet capacity." The color drained from Uncle Richard's face. "There must be some mistake. Let me make a call." "To whom?" Thompson asked mildly. "As far as I know, a Lake Crown's CEO is notoriously private. No one even knows who owns the company." I pressed a button on my desk, and my executive assistant connected me to the conference room's phone line. "Mr. Thompson's office," a voice announced over the speakerphone. "I have Marcus Warner, CEO of the Lake Crown Transportation, on the line for Mr. Thompson." The silence in the room was deafening. I watched Uncle Richard and David exchange panicked looks as Thompson put the call on speaker. "Mr. Thompson," I said clearly professionally, "I understand you're discussing transportation requirements with Harrison Enterprises." "Yes, Mr. Warner. Though I'm confused, I was just told they have a special arrangement with your company." "Oh, they do," I confirmed. "I've been their driver for the past 5 years." The look of shock on their faces was priceless. David actually stumbled backward into his chair. "Perhaps," I continued, "we should discuss this in person. I'm free this afternoon if you'd like to visit our offices. Your current drivers can bring you. They work for me, after all." Thompson was trying not to smile. "That sounds excellent. And the Harrison representatives? They know the way. I drove them there often enough, though they never realized what building they were passing." An hour later, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office, watching their cars pull up to the building. The same cars I owned, driven by people on my payroll, carrying my shell-shocked family members to the final act of my long game. Uncle Richard and David walked into my office like men in a daze. Gone was the arrogance, the condescension. They stared at the modern space, the industry awards on the walls, the fleet management screens showing hundreds of vehicles moving across the city. "How?" Uncle Richard whispered. 5 years ago, you told me being a driver was all I was good for," I said calmly. "So I became the best driver in the city. Then I hired more drivers, built a fleet, created a technology platform that revolutionized luxury transportation. While you were laughing at me for driving you around, I was building an empire." "But the cars, the company, it must have taken millions," David sputtered. "It did. Every time you used our service, every time you insisted on the newest Mercedes or BMW, you were paying me. Your condescension funded my expansion. Ironic, isn't it?" Thompson arrived then, taking in the scene with obvious amusement. "I have to say, Marcus, this is not what I expected when I came to discuss transportation contracts. I gesture for everyone to sit. Let's talk business then. Elite Crown can absolutely handle your transportation needs, Mr. Thompson. We have the fleet, the technology, and the experience. The only question is," I looked at Uncle Richard and David, "whether we'll be providing those services through Harrison Enterprises or directly to your company." "You wouldn't," Uncle Richard started, then stopped. He knew I would. "The Thompson contract is worth, what, $50 million? I leaned back in my chair. "That's about what you made in jokes about my career choice over the years. Seems fair." "Marcus," Uncle Richard's voice had lost all its previous authority. "We're family." "Funny, that didn't seem to matter when you were treating me like your servant." David tried next. "We didn't know." "That's exactly the point," I cut him off. "You never bothered to look past your own assumptions. You saw what you expected to see. Just a driver, just a failure, just someone to mock at family dinners." I turned to Thompson. "I'm prepared to offer you a comprehensive transportation solution. A Lake Crown's full fleet at your disposal, our premium service level, and our proprietary technology platform. No middlemen, no markups." Thompson nodded appreciatively. "And Harrison Enterprises?" I looked at my uncle and cousin, seeing the desperation in their eyes. The Thompson deal was meant to be their company's big break, their step into the major leagues. Without it, and without the transportation fleet to support it, they would lose more than just this contract. Harrison Enterprises can continue to use our services, I said finally. At standard corporate rates, of course. No more family discounts. The meeting ended quickly after that. Thompson left with a signed contract and a handshake. Uncle Richard and David lingered, clearly struggling to process everything. The cars, David said suddenly. All those times you drove us. You owned all of them? Every single one. I confirmed. Including the one waiting downstairs to take you back to your office. Though you might want to be nicer to the driver this time. He's not just an employee, he's a shareholder. They left in silence, broken men compared to the arrogant executives who'd flown out just days ago. I watched their car, my car, pull away from the building. Sarah appeared in my doorway. That was either very generous or very cruel, depending on how you look at it. I smiled. They still have their company. They still have transportation for their other contracts. They just don't have their illusions anymore. And the family dinners. Those will be interesting from now on. I turned back to my fleet management screens. Though I think I'll hire a driver for myself. I've got better things to do than chauffeur people who don't appreciate the service. The next family dinner was indeed interesting. Gone were the snide remarks about my career choice, the condescending suggestions about real jobs. Instead, they watched in silence as I arrived in one of my cars, driven by someone else this time, and took my place at the table. How's the Thompson contract going? I asked innocently, enjoying the way Uncle Richard choked on his wine. My father cleared his throat. Marcus, son, we may have been wrong about your choices. May have been. My mother found her voice. Richard, you treated my son like a servant for years, and all this time, I finished for her. I was building something worth building, not for show, not for status, but because I saw an opportunity and had the patience to make it work, even if that meant letting people underestimate me. Uncle Richard couldn't meet my eyes. David studied his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. The funny thing is, I continued, cutting into my steak. If you had ever bothered to ask me about my business instead of mocking it, I would have happily partnered with you. Elite Crown could have been part of Harrison Enterprises, but you couldn't see past your own prejudices. Can we? Is there still a chance? Uncle Richard asked quietly. I considered him for a moment. No, but you can continue to be clients, as long as you remember that every time you climb into one of those luxury cars, every time you use our service to impress your clients, you're proving that the family failure wasn't who you thought it was. Today, Elite Crown Transportation is worth over $500 million. We're expanding to other cities, revolutionizing luxury transport with our technology and service standards. Uncle Richard and David still use our services. They have to, given our market dominance. But they're model clients now. Amazing what a little perspective can do. And me? I still drive sometimes, but only when I want to. There's something therapeutic about sitting behind the wheel of a luxury car, remembering how it all started, appreciating the journey that took me from being their driver to being the owner of their success. After all, the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong. It's making them pay for the privilege of being proven wrong, one luxury car ride at a time. I can still smell the leather and mahogany of my father's office, still see the sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Hudson Industries headquarters. That day is burned into my memory, the day my father chose my stepsister over his own daughter. Olivia, you need to understand. My father's voice was firm as he stood behind his imposing desk. Madison has an MBA from Harvard. She's been groomed for this position. I gripped the arms of my chair, fighting to keep my voice steady. And my degree in engineering from MIT means nothing. The patents I've developed for the company, the innovations I've brought to our product line, those are technical achievements he dismissed with a wave. Running Hudson Industries requires business acumen, leadership skills. Skills that I've demonstrated for the past 5 years as head of R&D. I interrupted. Our department's productivity has doubled under my leadership. Madison, my stepsister of 3 years, sat perfectly poised in the adjacent chair, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She'd been in the company for exactly 8 months. Olivia, my father sighed, using the same tone he used when I was a child asking too many questions. Madison understands the big picture. She knows how to navigate the corporate world, how to maintain our relationships with investors. Even she knows how to play golf with board members and laugh at their jokes. I cut in, unable to contain my bitterness. Madison's smile didn't waver. Don't be bitter, darling. You'll still have your little workshop to play with your gadgets. I turned to her, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. Ever since my father had married her mother, Madison had been systematically working to replace me, not just in the company, but in my father's life. Those gadgets account for 60% of our revenue, I said coldly. But you'd know that if he'd ever bothered to read a financial report instead of just the society pages. That's enough. My father's voice cracked like a whip. The decision is made. Madison will be taking over as CEO when I retire next month. You're not qualified to run this business, Olivia. You're an engineer, not a leader. The words hit like physical blows. Not qualified. Not a leader. Just an engineer. I stood up slowly, my mind surprisingly clear despite the earthquake happening in my heart. I see. Then you won't mind if this just an engineer resigns effective immediately. For the first time, my father's composure cracked. Don't be dramatic. You can't just walk away. Watch me. I turned and walked to the door, but Madison's voice stopped me. Don't forget your non-compete agreement, dear sister. You won't be developing any more gadgets for our competitors. I looked back at them, my father, already recovering his stern expression, and Madison, radiating triumph from her perfectly styled hair to her designer heels. You're right, Madison. I won't be competing with Hudson Industries. I smiled, and something in my expression made her smile falter. I'll be leaving it in the dust. The next hour passed in a blur. I returned to my office, my workshop, as Madison called it, and began systematically downloading my personal files. Everything I developed outside of company time, every idea I kept in reserve, every innovation I hadn't yet shared. My team watched in silence as I packed my things. They were good people, brilliant engineers who had helped turn my visions into reality. Most have been here longer than Madison had been out of business school. Dr. Hudson, Maria, my senior engineer, stepped into my office. Is it true? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Then we're coming with you. I looked up, startled. What? All of us. She gestured to the team gathered outside my door. We've already drafted our resignations. Wherever you're going, we're going too. For the first time that day, tears threatened to fall. The non-compete doesn't apply to non-executive employees, Maria smiled. We checked. My father appeared in the doorway, his face darkening as he took in the scene. What's going on here? A mass exodus, it appears, I said calmly, closing my laptop. Though I'm sure Madison can replace these technical people easily enough. You can't take my entire R&D team. Your R&D team? I raised an eyebrow. I thought I wasn't qualified to lead. He stepped forward, lowering his voice. Olivia, be reasonable. You're acting out of emotion. No, Dad. For the first time, I'm acting purely on logic. I picked up my box of belongings. Madison can have your company. I'll build my own. Maria and the team followed me out, leaving my father standing in my empty office. As we waited for the elevator, I could hear Madison's voice drifting down the hall. Daddy, don't worry. We can hire new engineers, more qualified ones. That night, I sat in my apartment surrounded by boxes of research notes and prototype designs. My phone kept buzzing. Messages from my father ranging from angry to pleading, from Madison gloating about her new office, from board members expressing their regret about my departure. I ignored them all, focusing instead on my laptop where I was outlining plans for something new. Something that would make Hudson Industries technology look like ancient history. The non-compete agreement prevented me from working in our current market for 2 years. But I had been developing ideas for an entirely new market, one that Madison, with all her Harvard business acumen, hadn't even realized existed. My team and I met the next day in a rented office space that smelled of fresh paint and possibility. 28 engineers, all top in their fields, all choosing to follow me into uncertainty. It won't be easy, I warned them. We're starting from scratch. We know, Maria replied. But we'd rather build something new with you than maintain something old with them. I looked around at their eager faces and felt a surge of determination. My father thought I wasn't qualified to lead. Madison thought I just played with gadgets. I opened my laptop and pulled up the designs I've been working on in secret for the past year. As I explained my vision, I saw their eyes light up with understanding and excitement. This wasn't just about proving my father wrong anymore. It was about proving myself right. Dr. Hudson, one of the younger engineers, raised his hand. What are we calling this new company? I smiled, thinking of Madison sitting in my father's office, probably already redecorating. Phoenix Technologies, because sometimes you have to burn everything down to build something better. As we worked late into the night, I could see Hudson Industries building from our window. My father's empire, soon to be Madison's inheritance. They thought they had won today, but they didn't know what was coming. They didn't know that every time they had dismissed me as just an engineer, I had been quietly building the foundation for something revolutionary, something that would change the entire industry. In 2 years, when the non-compete expired, they would learn exactly what they had lost. But by then, it would be too late. Because the girl they thought wasn't qualified to lead was about to show them what real leadership looked like. And it would be spectacular. 3 years can change everything. I stood in my office at Phoenix Technologies headquarters, watching the morning sun glint off the glass and steel of our newly completed research campus. Below, employees streamed into the building, each wearing the distinctive Phoenix emblem that had become synonymous with innovation in the tech world. Dr. Hudson, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. They're here. I smiled slightly. How many? 3, your father, Madison, and their CFO. Let them wait in the lobby for 20 minutes, then bring them up. A petty power play, perhaps, but after what they put me through, I'd earned it. I turned to the wall of screens displaying Phoenix Technologies' latest achievements. Our stock price, up 400% since our IPO last year. Our market share, now dominating the emerging quantum computing sector. And our latest innovation, the one that had forced my father and stepsister to finally swallow their pride and come begging. The quantum processor we developed didn't just improve on existing technology, it revolutionized it. While Hudson Industries had been churning out minor upgrades to their traditional computer components, we've been quietly building the future. They're on their way up, my assistant announced. I straightened my suit, not the designer labels Madison favored, but a sleek, professional cut that spoke of confidence rather than fashion. Thank you, Sarah. The door opened, and there they were. My father looked older, the stress of recent years evident in his face. Madison's perfect appearance showed cracks, her smile strained, her designer outfit slightly less pristine than usual. The CFO, a new face, clutched a folder of documents like a shield. Olivia, my father started, then stopped, taking in the view from my office. The same floor-to-ceiling windows as his old office, but now looking out over a campus 3 times the size of Hudson Industries. Welcome to Phoenix Technologies, I said calmly. Please sit. They took their seats. Power dynamics shifted, roles reversed. Now I was the one behind the imposing desk. Madison spoke first, her voice lacking its usual smugness. You've done well for yourself. Have I? I pulled up a holoscreen, another Phoenix innovation. Let's talk about why you're really here. The CFO opened his folder, but I waved him off. No need. I know your numbers better than you do. Hudson Industries is 3 months from bankruptcy. Your market share has dropped 70% in the past year. Your stock price hit an all-time low yesterday. The market has been volatile, Madison defended weakly. The market has been evolving, I corrected. While you were maintaining the status quo, we were revolutionizing it. That's why you're here, isn't it? You need our quantum processors to stay relevant. My father leaned forward. We're prepared to offer a very generous licensing agreement. No. The silence that followed was deafening. No. Madison's composure cracked. What do you mean no? I stood up, walking to the window. 3 years ago, you told me I wasn't qualified to lead, that I was just an engineer playing with gadgets, remember? She had the grace to look uncomfortable. Now you want to license our technology? The technology developed by the person you deemed unqualified? I turned back to them. The answer is no. Olivia, my father's voice took on the stern tone I remembered from childhood. Don't let personal feelings interfere with business. Personal feelings? I laughed. This is pure business. Phoenix Technologies doesn't license our core technology to competitors. We never have. You'd know that if you'd done your homework. Then why agree to this meeting? Madison demanded. I sat back down, folding my hands on my desk. Because I have a counter offer. Phoenix Technologies will acquire Hudson Industries. Absolutely not, my father thundered. Your board has already approved it, I said calmly, enjoying their shocked expressions. They voted this morning. The only thing needed is the family signatures, which, as you know, is required by the company charter. I pulled up another screen showing the terms. We'll absorb your existing contracts, retain most of your employees, and maintain the Hudson name on select legacy products. You'll receive fair compensation for your shares. Madison's face had gone pale. And what about us? You'll be offered positions in our marketing division. Entry level, of course. You'll need to learn the business from the ground up, something you should have done 3 years ago. This is absurd, my father sputtered. You can't possibly. Actually, I can. And I will. I looked him in the eye. Unless you prefer bankruptcy, your choice. The CFO, who had been frantically reviewing the acquisition terms, cleared his throat. Sir, these terms are actually quite generous considering our position. My father slumped in his chair, the fight draining out of him. Madison stared at her manicured hands, tears threatening to ruin her perfect makeup. Why, she whispered. Why not just let Hudson Industries fail? It would be the perfect revenge. Because that's not what leaders do. I stood up again, facing the campus I'd built. A real leader doesn't destroy things out of spite. They build something better. They create opportunities not just for themselves, but for others. I turned back to them. Hudson Industries employs thousands of people. They don't deserve to suffer because of your poor leadership. Under Phoenix, they'll have the chance to be part of something revolutionary. And us? My father asked quietly. What happens to us? You get what you wanted, the chance to see if Madison can work her way up through the ranks, starting from the bottom, earning her position through merit rather than nepotism. Madison flinched. As for you, Dad, I softened my tone slightly. You can retire with dignity, knowing the company you built will live on as part of something greater. Or you can join our board of advisors, not as my father, but as someone who might still have wisdom to share. Your choice. The signing took less than an hour. As they stood to leave, my father paused at the door. Olivia, I was wrong. About you, about everything. I know. After they left, I stayed at my window, watching as they crossed the campus to their waiting cars. 3 years ago, I had stood in a similar office, being told I wasn't qualified to lead. Now I had built something beyond their wildest dreams. Maria knocked and entered, smiling as she saw me lost in thought. Feeling sentimental? Just appreciating the irony, I replied. They thought leadership was about business school credentials and golf course deals, instead of innovation, vision, and actually understanding what you're trying to build. Exactly. I turned from the window. Schedule a company-wide meeting for tomorrow. It's time to share our next breakthrough. The neural interface project too, I nodded. Madison thought quantum computing was revolutionary. Wait until she sees what we're doing next. As I prepared for tomorrow's presentation, I thought about the lesson my father and Madison had never understood. True leadership isn't about titles or MBAs or family connections. It's about having the vision to see what's possible, the skills to make it reality, and the wisdom to bring others along on the journey. They had inherited a company and driven it into the ground. I had built an empire and lifted thousands up with me, and that was the greatest revenge of all, not destroying what they had, but creating something so much greater that they had no choice but to become part of it. Sometimes the best way to prove someone wrong isn't to tear them down, but to rise so high they have no choice but to look up to you. Even if they have to start from the bottom to do it.